I'm going to be doing a haircut. It's going to be a mullet. I'm going to be using some fading techniques. I'll be doing some texturizing to his hair as well to just kind of manipulate the hair and get it to do what we needed to do. Are we touching the beard at all? No. Okay, nothing on the beard. Yeah, designs or anything? It's up to you. Okay, all right, cool. So when we're doing these demonstrations, guys, the best way to get an understanding of what's happening is feedback from you, Q&A, questions you guys will be asking. Really helps to give you what you need. It's one thing to just hear somebody do a demo on what they want to show you, but it's another thing to make sure that you're getting the things that you want to learn. And so I want to make sure that that's the kind of stuff that's happening while I'm up here. You know, Bo, you might have a question, but like, hey, why did you do that? How did you position yourself? A lot of times when I'm doing a demonstration, you'll hear me say things that I've said before. There'll be a lot of repetitious statements because I don't really change my system regardless of the type of haircut that it is. So the haircut's not going to change. I mean, the haircut may be different, but my approach to the haircut never changes. There's three things I'm always looking for when it comes to a haircut. The first thing is shape. Shape is important because the overall look of the cut is going to be the shape of the cut. So we know that a mohawk is what? Like this, right? That's the shape of the cut. We know that a one all the way around, that's the shape of the cut. Right? We know that if someone's wearing a mullet, it has hair in the back and has hair on the top. Depending on the type of mullet, it's either squared and flat top with a lot of hair in the back, or it's more of a modernized sort of a mohawk transition into a mullet. So we're going to do more modernized one. Now that also depends. Do we want the front to be shorter? Do we want the apex to have where the most height of this cut is going to be and then transition into the back? That's going to be determined as we're going through the haircut, right? One, through consultation, also see what his hair is doing. But shape is one of the big things that I'm always looking at. The second thing I'm looking at is length and direction. So shape, length, and direction. Those are the things that I'm always looking at. The shape is going to determine how long the hair is going to be. The direction is the style of the hair, right? But the overall shape is, if you focus on those three things, then you can generally get an idea of what your haircut should look like, okay? And all of you should get to a point where when someone comes in and they have a haircut and they show you a photograph, I want my hair to look like this. Those are the three things you're looking at. There's the shape of the cut, I can see the length of it, and the direction he wants it to comb back. That's it. So if you can determine those three things, it should help you to determine what type of haircut you're going to give this person. Many of you already know that there's only 4 haircuts in the world. If you didn't, now you know. The different looks that come of those haircuts are what makes haircutting seem like there's a whole lot of different unique styles. But there's only 4 haircuts. Majority of your haircuts are going to be anywhere between a 90 and a 45, for the most part for men's cutting. So today I'm going to give him a fade on the side. We're going to transition into this mullet in the back. And one of the things, this hair was pre-colored by one of our students. And yesterday when it was colored in a mohawk. But I advised that we would add some color in there to transition almost to an ombre, where you get that dark going into a little bit lighter and then into the blonde. So it's just not a drastic dark to light. Yes, question? In that type of situation, would a burst fade be considered? So yeah, burst fade is similar to the type of haircut that we're going to do. But we got to focus on how do we transition that into this. But burst fade is definitely the look that we're going for this, for sure. Great question. Anybody else have one? No? All right. So it was my recommendation that we would not only lighten and continue to color this, but also lighten some of the sides so you have a much better transition from dark to light. If you just would have had it blonde, you would have had all this dark and then the blonde would have been a mohawk, and you wouldn't have been able to see no transition. As you begin to style this hair, you won't have any more movement in that hair, and it would just kind of make it just bland. We want movement. We want this hair to say something. So what I'm going to do, let me position this real quick. Move this over here. Voila. All right. Is that better for y'all? Okay. So I do like this hair that's back here. So I'm going to try to salvage as much of this as I possibly can, right? I do like the fact that we have this up here, but I need to get this haircut out the way. Barker, I would like to trim some of this in the front, okay? Because right now your hair is pretty squared. So when I lift this up, his hair is pretty squared. Y'all see that? It doesn't have a good shape to it. What I want to create is a drastic shape where it goes short to long and then goes back into this long. So we have more of a mullet style shape, but we're not going to give him, you know, an old style mullet. We ain't giving him the old school classic mullet. What I want to do first is I want to remove some of this bulk and weight, but I don't want to cut a lot of this out because I need this to help with the style correct. So I am going to comb a little bit of this away, and I'm cutting him dry. But I'm going to go right underneath this, and I'm starting with my 3 just to remove a little bit of weight. When I go to the back, what I find a lot of times when students are trying to create these types of looks, they do the haircut as if it's going to be a regular fade, and they keep it straight across. When you mention burst fade, it really helps to create the shape of this cut. So this cut does go like this. So we're going to round this out. So I'm removing weight in the temporal area. And as I go around the back, I'm only going to see if I can reposition this so you can see. So right in here, I'm going to tilt my clipper just to get some of that hair. You see how I went through that? Because I need to trim some of it so it blends into that. But what I don't want to do is cut straight across all that weight and then I have like a straight, and it's just a straight shape and doesn't look like it's going to have that transition. So what I don't want is that straight shape, then it looks like I'm just doing like a light fade. Move this weight. Just going to use the corner where it's a little dark right there. All right, cool. Notice I didn't put a guideline in there. All I did is remove my weight. So when you look at what I have going on here, I'm already beginning to start my transition with my fade. You can see the light going into dark, into lighter, back into dark already. So I went with my 3. I'm gonna go down to my 1.5. I don't necessarily need my 2. I'm using my 1.5, and I'm gonna make it longer by tilting this in a 90. And the area that I'm focused mostly on is right in here. This is where that burst comes in. I'm not worried about this because I want this to be dark. And I'm not worried about this because I need that to transition. So most of my fade is going to happen in here. Right above the ear. Anterior part of the ear. Going into the temporal area. And you guys can all see, right? Okay. I'm fading from top to bottom. Working my way down. I'm going from my 1.5 to my 1. Holding it at a 90. I always cut from top to bottom. It doesn't matter what kind of cut I'm doing. I was wondering if I was to do 2 demos, I would have done Dell if Dell wanted to cut, because I'm not sure what he's doing with his. Now I'm closing it all the way. I'm dropping my angle. Yes, sir. What's your question? I always stay in the same spot. All the time I cut, I stand in the same spot. I don't ever move. The only reason I'm moving around the chair right now is so that you guys can see on the monitors.
I'm talking about the same spot on his head.
On his head?
Where the tape is.
So your question is, when I'm fading, do I stay in the same area?
I mean, clearly you stay in the same area, but I'm talking about like you don't like literally move up.
Oh no, because I already cut the top part. I'm working my way down.
Damn, okay.
Yeah. So you think I'm cutting in the same spot, but I'm cutting lower. Every time I go lower on the guard, I'm going lower on the fade. Yeah, so I already removed the weight that I wanted to remove out of here. So if we took a look at the other side, it's a lot darker, right? You see all the weight. So you can see all that weight, it's a lot darker, right? It's heavier. What I began to do is remove some of the weight in here first, and then I began to work my way down. But my fade and the transition for this fade is going to be right in here. All right, good. So let me go ahead, and again, I'm now working in that same area, right in the temporal area, just using my corners to lighten that up. I'm going to close it all the way, and I'm going slightly lower than where I just was. Open it back up because I got to go higher. Work my way down. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm taking my guard off, open. And I'm just using my corner. And like Bo asked about the burst fade, I'm focused mostly on this area right here. And as you can see, my fade is already taking its shape. I didn't put any guidelines in there. I didn't need to. I'm just dropping it as I see fit for the fade and how high I want to go. And one of the reasons I didn't put a weight line in. What part? Up here?
No, like right above the fade.
Right in here?
It's my eyes.
Yeah, there's no weight line there.
Maybe it look different.
Yeah, there's no weight line there.
It just look different on the screen.
Yeah, there's no. I didn't put a guideline in, and the reason why I don't put a guide because the head is my guide. When people are putting in their guides for their fades, it is important to do that if you can't maintain symmetry or making it look even on each side. So I do recommend doing that. But as you become better and you get quicker and more efficient with your haircuts, then I recommend just using the head for the guideline, because we know all the reference points. Most people are going to start their bald line at the parietal ridge or right below it. So if you know that's where it's going to be bald, why would you put it in there? You know you're going to make it bald anyway. If you know that your second guideline is going to be a finger or 2 fingers above the parietal ridge, why would you put a line in if you're just going to remove it at that spot anyway? So the head becomes my guideline. I'm following the head shape. So I'm going to go ahead in here a little bit more. I think I'm going to reduce a little bit more weight. Sometimes when you're cutting, you'll see a few things and you'll want to cut into it. But I recommend go ahead and shaping it up sometimes. When you shape it up, what you'll find is an area that you may have been looking at is only effective because it doesn't have distinct shape to it. So although this may look like it's faded, right, but it looks like it's a little weighted here and over here, once I start to shape this up, I may get a better view of what this fade is looking like. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this as wide as possible using only the top corner of my blade, keeping it as wide as possible. The other spot that I'm going to mark is right here. I'm looking at where his hairline is. This is hangover. So all of this is here's where his line starts. That hair is hanging over, so I can determine where I want to put this line. Now I'm using the bottom portion of this line to create this mark. So now I have 2 marks. I have one up here at the top. This is at the lowest point, and this is at the widest point. I'm going to transition these 2, and my finger, if you pay attention, is positioned on this cheekbone. That's going to help to stabilize my liner. As I work my way around, I'm working my way up and bringing them together, and then I'll come back down to clean them up. Work my way up. I'm resting my finger on this cheekbone to stabilize it. Now I have a better idea of the shape. The next thing I'm going to do is right above his ear. I'm going to pull his ear down. Notice I wasn't, gentle with his ear. This is my ear. I'm just pulling it, getting it right out the way. Now that I've cleaned that up, you actually can see the fade a little better. But when that hair was hanging over and this was hanging over, you really couldn't see the transition in this fade. I want to take it a little bit higher. So I'm going to go ahead with my 1. And right here, I'm going to go ahead and reduce the weight. It's open. I'm holding it at a 90. And then I'm going to begin to tilt it and then drop my angle. Close it all the way. Do the same thing right below where I was just working. Open it back up just to get this little dark spot. And I'm only using the corner in this area right now. Go ahead and open this up. No guard. Remove it. I'm going to close it all the way now. And I'm going to blend this all the way out. Notice I didn't do big C motions, and I didn't create any guides in order to create that transition. And because I'm not creating any guides to create a transition, I don't have to remove a line and try and take it out. I can go back in with my liner, clean this up. So if you notice when I shaped them up the first time, I didn't perfect it. I just kind of had it where it would sit. And now that the fade is a little bit tighter, I can go ahead and clean up any of those loose hairs that are sticking out. And there we have his fade. I'm going to go ahead and blend into his beard to create the transition into the top. When trying to blend in someone's beard without removing all this weight, there's a few things I like to do. I like to have the clipper open and I'll rake it right up top. And then work my way out to the beard. So it looks like this. I'm going to rake it here first, and then I'm going to work my way out to the ends of that beard, the length of that beard. So that way I'm not cutting into it and I'm getting a better transition. The next thing I'll do is add a 90 right up top, just working right at the top area of that beard, and I'll slowly bring it down to blend it in. Now we have a much better transition going in from his beard into his fade. The fun part is when we get to the top. Can we move this camera real quick? Because I'm going to work on this side. All right. All right, cool. Do what I did on the other side. Just repeat and remove a little bit of weight. Not a whole lot. I want to cut into that brown. Yep.
When it comes to removing weight, what's the best guard? Like, let's say you're doing mid fade or something or whatever, and he has a lot on top. So you brought the sides down to, like, let's say a 3 or whatever, but you want to still remove a little more weight towards the fade part.
Going into, you talking about on the side or towards the back?
Towards the sides and the back. You know, let's say you got like a mid fade all around. So
Right.
what would be the best guard to use?
So I can't say what's the best guard to use in that scenario. What I can tell you is it's going to determine on the shape of the cut first. Remember, shape, length, and direction. The shape of the cut is going to tell me how long I need that weight to be. So I would also, if we didn't have a different color hair, I need this to be choppy and piecey for the look that we're going with. So if I didn't need it to be choppy and piecey, I would create my length and cut that straight off. But I don't want a straight cut. I need this to be piecey because I'm going to be very creative with how these hairs are going to flow into the shape. But the weight is going to be determined on the overall look based on the shape. So with this particular haircut, it's kind of hard to just put a 2 right on it. Right. All I want to do is just remove some of this weight without getting into the brown. Okay? So I'm going to do something a little different than I did on the other side. I'm going to first go ahead and mark where the shape up is going to be, keeping it wide and low. I'm going to go ahead and begin to transitions. I'll explain to you why I'm doing this first instead of what I did on the other side. No, I'm not even going to put a guideline. I just want to create the shape of that so that way I can know how dark I want to keep that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut right into this. This is not a guideline. Yep. So the same rules apply. In this case, it's going to happen really, really quick though, because I don't have to worry about blending it into that. I'm only going to blend this out. All right. So I'm going to go to my 1. I'm going to go ahead and reduce all this right now. Remember, I need this hair to transition into that as well. Take my 1 off, open. And now I'm dropping my angle. Then I'm going to close it all the way. And guys, the only reason I'm able to fade this has a lot to do with how I'm positioning my clipper. I'm not making a whole lot of adjustments. It's either all the way open, tilted at a 90, or flat. It's either all the way closed, tilted at a 90, or flat. When I'm on the very, very bottom, I may do a couple little clicks just to get maybe a one tiny little dark piece. But if you notice, the fade comes in really, really quickly here. Now, because we're doing a burst style fade, I'm going to remove more of the hair on this side, work my way back. The cool thing about when somebody wants something creative, you don't really have to, go and follow the rules. The rule of thumb is learn the rules like a pro so you can break them like an artist. I'm not changing the rules of cutting. I'm still following within my systems and the way I cut. But when I'm creative, I'm using my artistic ability to create a look. Go ahead and ball this out. I want to line this up right around his ear. Every time I'm shaping up, even around the ear, this is the opposite side. Although I'm not using his cheekbone, I did up here. But right here, I'm using my finger to stabilize it right there as I'm working around his ear. Then I rest my finger here, and I rest my other finger on my finger to stabilize it. Well, it's awkward if you're not used to it. You just gotta get used to it. I'm gonna remove a little bit of weight above that, just in this back corner. Get hair out the way. I want this front area to stay as dark as possible so it looks sharper. So far, does anybody have any questions about what I'm doing?
So that top half of it is going to get blended as well?
Nope, I'm keeping that dark. We're gonna keep that dark. I want this to be dark as possible right here. It can slowly fade out here, but yeah, because we want to keep some of this, I want to make it have like a. So when I'm putting a design, this is simple. It's just one line. I can add more if I wanted to, but a lot of times simple is better. What I'm looking for is a flow. I want when people look at his cut, what you'll see once it's up and it's styled, this hair is going to be going this way. This hair is going to be going this way. This is going to come here, and this is going to be coming down this way. But what this part is doing is getting your eyes to go in that direction of the hair flow. So if I was to do a line this way, just completely this way, it would stop the flow of the direction. Does that make sense? So when you think about when you walk into a building, if you walk into the front door of a home, sometimes it's presented another door right there, right? And there's like a little foyer. Other times there's not. But imagine walking in and there's a wall there and then you got to turn right. It changes the flow of the home, right? You want to be able to walk in and just kind of flow. If you put a couch in the middle, you got to walk around the couch. It changes the flow. This is creating a flow of the shape of this cut. I see the style that I want to do before I'm doing it. That's how I know how long I want it to be, the shape and the direction. This is going to accentuate what I'm talking about because I can already see the end result. Yep. No, I didn't. So her question was, did I always have that ability to see it? I can't necessarily say yes to that. I think I'm a creative. I can walk in a room and say that couch is going to fit here. I can do that kind of stuff, but that came with experience. It came with time. You know, I've seen people try to fit big screen TVs in a little Toyota Corolla, and you knew it wasn't getting in there, but I learned that through experience, right, and over time. I've seen it happen. I'm sure other people have seen it happen.
I used to work at HH Grade, so I definitely seen that happen.
So I'm going to go ahead and remove some of this little bit of weight here. Go ahead and shape his front up. Clean this up. And I'm going to blend in this beard. Cool. Now that I have that, might want to tilt this for me, Nick. Just the handle, yeah. There we go. Good. Thank you. Get this out the way. Clean that up. All right. So the next thing I want to do is I want to start to then work on cutting the rest of this, and then we can really bring in the rest of the shape of this cut. What's happening here is I like the length we have in the back. It's a little flat. It's dropping, so we want to create is a little bit of lift to create some movement in there. So I'll show you how I'm going to create some lift and movement. This has a pretty decent length on the top, but this is too long in the front. Now, the reason why it's like that is because he's been growing his hair out, and the style he had when he started growing his hair out required him to have this length in the front. But he changed the look and didn't want to cut it. I told him not to cut it so that when I do a demonstration, I have something I can work with also. So I'm going to bring this a little shorter in the front, and we're going to create some lift in here, and you're going to see that this haircut's going to go like this, and then down into this. So some water. When I'm spraying my guest or my client, I generally try to spray away from their face so that way water is not dripping down their forehead into their eyes. I'm always trying to spray it away from their face. Now, I would say that this hair color needs to be toned again. Still very brassy. So that's something we'll have to film that and do that one also. For our senior students, they're actually in the color chapter right now. All right. Now, because I wet his hair, he doesn't have water dripping down his forehead and going into his eyes. I wet it and I have it all going backwards. What I can do now is begin to create the shape that I'm looking for. I know that I want to keep the length at the apex. I'm going to start at the apex. So there's two things I'm going to do. I'm going to create texture on the ends. I like to start at the apex because it's a reference point for me. When you're cutting hair, you can get distracted by a lot of different things. You can get distracted by the conversation that you and your guests are having. You can get distracted by a phone, a text. All kind of things can get in the way of you performing your service at an optimal level. So what I like to do is if I know where I started and I get distracted, I can go back to that area and find where I left off. Many times you guys are like, I can't find my guide. We come back a few times, then you find your guide. This is why I choose the apex as my reference point. The other reason that I choose the apex as my reference point has a lot to do with the transition of the head. And I'll explain to you what I mean in a second. So, do any of you remember the illustration that I gave in the visual as far as the top of the head? Can anyone tell me what that was? I gave an illustration on when you're looking at the head from the top. Russ, can you hit 3 on there real quick for me? Hit 3. All right, cool. So when you're looking at the top of a head, if this is the apex, you would divide this into quadrants. So this quadrant right here is 1. This is another quadrant, like an umbrella. So the reason why that's so important that you understand that is because this part of the head is flat. From here to here, this is flat. Do you see that? Do you see how this moves away? You see what's happening here? What's happening right here? It's curving because the head is rounding from the apex to here. This is beginning to round, which means the hair flow is going to be moving in a different direction. It's easy to cut this flat. But if you cut too much when it's round, the haircut either goes up or it goes down. You cut too much, it goes up. You cut too little, it goes down. If I pull this hair up and I go straight across and I cut this straight across, I will naturally get a drop fade. And the reason I'll get a drop fade is because this hair, let's take a look at where it's laying on the comb. You see that? This hair is now traveling from here to here. This hair is traveling from here to here, so it's very short. As I cut straight back, if I lift all this hair and I pull this out, what will happen is this will fall here, this falls here, this falls here, this falls here. You would naturally get a drop fade. And all I'm doing is holding my comb straight. Because the head is rounding is going to cause it either to drop. If I keep cutting this up, I'll go high. And you'll see a lot of barbers, they're cutting in that crown area because they're taking the fade. They say, hey, what's the perfect guard to use? They'll put that forward, go the whole ways up. They go the whole ways up into the crown, and they got no room to work with in here, so there's not a good transition. Okay? So I'm using this, and I'm visualizing my umbrella. So I've already created texture on the top by cutting into it, right? And all I'm doing is I'm doing I'm not doing point cutting. I'm notching into the hair because what I'm doing, let me see if I can hold it like this. I'm going in angles. And when I cut, I'm pulling out. When I cut, I'm pulling out. I'm not going in and cutting. If I go in and cut, I'm going to cut myself. But when I go in, I can set it on my finger and I can cut coming out. You got to cut going out. So now that I've done the apex and I'm working my way forward, the head begins to transition right past the apex leaning forward, and then you have the forehead that drops forward. So there's a gap in between, which is my transition from my frontal to my apex. So you have your frontal, you have right in between, you have your apex, and then right below that, it starts to round off to the back. The head is rounding from this point. So remember I said I want this haircut to look like this? I have to keep in mind that this area is going to be a little bit shorter, and I'm going to continue to get shorter. Hit the 1 on there, please. Camera 1. Thank you. So now, here we are. Right at the apex, I'm going to go straight across. I'm going to go ahead and grab this hair. And what I'm going to do, because remember his haircut was squared. We're making it shorter. I'm going to do a lot more cutting in here because I want this to be shorter. But what I'm doing is I'm adding texture along the way. It's not going to be even. It's not going to be perfect. I know that because I want it to be textured. This haircut is a textured cut.
So are you going in at an angle for
I'm going in at an angle. That's where the texture's coming. I'm going in, that's called notching. If I'm going straight in, then that's point cutting, okay? I am using the points when I'm notching, but I'm going in angles because I'm creating small little angles inside on the ends of that hair. I'm going again, I'm going a little bit shorter than that. I'm going to use my last cut area for my guide. So if y'all can see on my jacket, do you see where the guide is right there? And now look how long that hair is. I want all that to come down to my guide, but I'm still putting notches into this cut. The other thing is, Lisa, you said you would cut yourself. If I leave this on my fingers, if I leave the steel blade on my fingers, I don't cut myself. I don't cut myself at all.
It's more the stabbing than the cutting.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid that I'm going to cut myself because I'm not closing the blade until I pull out.
Yeah.
But when I'm coming in, I'm afraid of stabbing myself with it.
Gotcha. It comes with time. Next section in the front.
So what you giving it texture like that, right? When the hair grows back, does it grow back as if like you use thinning shears, or is it like that?
It won't be as if I use thinning shears, but it will have texture on the ends.
Do you use thinning shears?
So I use a texturizing shear, and I will use some today, and I'll show you when and why. But I don't use them very often because I can use my shear to create the texture that I want. Yeah. So now we're in the front. There's my length right there. Grab this hair. Just cutting through. Cutting some more. Lift this up. I got that length right there. So now, when I lift this hair up, I want you to pay attention to what's happening. Do you see the angle that I just created? Okay? Now, does his hair look too much different than what it did? Not much at all. But now what I have is, I have shorter hair in the front, I have longer hair up into the apex, and I've already begun to create my shape, right? As I go back, I want to keep in mind that I need weight in the crown. But the head is doing what from here to here? It's transitioning, it's rounding off. I have to keep that in mind because if I cut too much off, this hair is either going to stick straight up, right? In this case, it wouldn't matter because he's wearing a spiky look. Or it's going to be too short that it's not going to be able to give me the shape that I want. This is too heavy and too long. It's not, when I lift this up, it's not giving me any movement. So the other thing that I have is it's not a mohawk. It's still very much squared. The shape is the same squared here, but I have more of an angle going from front to apex. You follow me? So now I want to go in this back or in the crown area right here. I want to make sure I'm standing in the right spot. Right here. And I'm going to create a section as if I'm doing a mohawk. Right? Remember, my umbrella. So here's the length of the hair. I want texture. All I'm doing, I didn't remove the length. I just created some choppiness to that because I needed the length. Go to the next section. Maintaining the length, just adding texture to the ends of this. I'm going to keep as much length here because this is where the hair is beginning to turn. When I'm going like this, I'm feeling the hair. Like I want to feel where it's heavy. This hair has a lot of movement right now. Over here it's heavy. It's dropping right away. I don't know if you can visually see what I'm feeling, but look at how the hair is bouncing. You see the hair is bouncing? Right? Well, right here, it's falling. There's no bounce to that hair. Over here, it has a bounce to it. Over here, it's just heavy weight. You see that? Okay? But I didn't cut a lot of length off. All I did was add texture to the end. So let's see what happens when I cut this section of hair. So I started down the middle, right? Now I'm going to my next section right beside it. This hair was not cut. Now, if you're ever cutting hair and the hair begins to curl on you while you're trying to cut it, because it's, has that ever happened to anyone? Mm-hmm. And you're like, man, this hair keeps curling. So what you do is you wet the hair and then you position it where you want it. So now the hair is laying the way I want it to lay, instead of it going both directions. Same thing, next section. I'm using my comb to get the hair to stand straight out and erect, so now I can go ahead and cut it.
So what's that cutting in now?
This is notching. Now look, now you see how I'm getting a little bit more bounce? It's just not falling flat. I'm getting more bounce. Because I'm getting more bounce, now I can proceed to the next section. I'm going to, remember, here's a quadrant that I'm working on. So let me go from my apex, because this is where we created the shape, right? I'm now using this as my quadrant. But I do want this hair to go back, so I don't want to cut it too short. See how when I pull that back, you get all that transition of color? I want to keep that, but I want to make sure that I got a little bit of movement in there. Move that out the way. I move this purposefully because I want to keep that length. Right here. Now I'm going down to the next section in the back part of my umbrella. All that weight. Long right there. Moving back right directly in back of the head. Here's the occipital bone. And what I'm doing here, let me pull it sideways. Look at how I'm maintaining length up top. Do you see the shape of the cut? Remember I said this haircut's going to go like this, and then like this. The way I'm maintaining that shape is by pointing my fingers down in the direction that I want to maintain. So I don't really need to trim any of that, but I need to add texture to this. Do you see the shape happening now? And that's directly in the middle. I'll probably have one more section of that right beside it. There it is. I probably won't have another section beside it, and why not? Why won't I have that same shape right in here, right beside these two middle sections? It's off to the side, it's not the same shape, and what's happening to the head in that area? What's rounding back, it's rounding. It's rounding out. This is where the shape from the directly in the back is. Right beside it, it doesn't matter. It's not going to be because I need some of that length. So I have to over direct that back into my shape so I don't lose the length. I want to maintain my length. And now what I'm looking for is bounce. And I got bounce. So now that we have that happening, his hair's still falling a little bit, so I need to add a little bit of texture in there. I'll show you how to do that in a second. What? I can do either or. I'll show you. I'll do a variety of them. So what I want is we really need to exaggerate this part because this is what makes the haircut cool. You got this happening in the front, but it's a mullet because of this. It's not a mullet because of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shorten the hair right in here and leave this as long as possible because I want that transition and then that length. Does that make sense? I kind of want, you won't see it, but it's going to grow out that way. When I cut Shelby's hair, I needed to add texture on the top, but Shelby's hair was very flat in the back. I had no movement whatsoever. So I added way more texture in the back here and left the length alone. Only added texture on the tips. So now when Shelby does their hair, they're able to manipulate and move it, and they got a lot of bounce, they got a lot of movement, they wanted to curl. It makes it very simple. But at first, you didn't have that movement. So I'm creating that by reducing some of that weight in here. Now, because of that, I need to make sure that these ends are long as possible. So the only spot I'm really focusing on is right in here. This is way too long for what I'm trying to accomplish in here. So I'm going to trim all of this. I'm going to go ahead and grab it. My knuckles are going to be right below his occipital bone, and I'm going to pull my fingers out like that because I want to maintain the length up top, but I want it right there, right below his occipital bone to be shorter. And the only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and just create texture right at the ends of that. But I'm making it shorter as I go up. Same thing, right in the middle, knuckles all the way right below his occipital bone. Pull that hair out, go ahead and trim. I'm just adding texture right at the bottom. A little bit lower, texture right at the bottom. Now, you can't tell that it's shorter, but you see how now that hair is sitting up on there? Because the shorter hairs are holding this up. But I need to maintain all this. I need to keep all this as much as possible. I'm filling the hair. This seems like it's a little long there. This is not as long, so I'm going to trim some more of this right in here. Bring this out, over direct it a little bit. There it is. Better. This still feels lighter. This still feels a little heavier right in here. Come on, Shaq. I want you to feel this. Yeah, come on up here. I want you to just feel this real quick. I appreciate it. So what I want you to do is feel this right here and work your way across and tell me where you feel the difference. Right there, it feels nice. You can feel that there's weight in there. Yeah, right in here. But the rest of that, it's got a lot of movement to it. You can feel it. Now, you may not know what you're feeling, but it definitely feels different right there. Okay. Right. So I'm going to trim some more of this. I'm going to dig deep in this. I'm good. Thank you. I appreciate it. So I'm showing you what I'm doing, but I want to make sure that you can understand what it is that I'm doing. When you see a stylist or somebody cutting hair and they're doing this, they're feeling where the hair feels off. And right here is heavier. So I'm going to go in. No, it's fine. I'm going to go in right here where you guys can see it. And I'm going to go right here at this end. I'm going to add a little more texture right at the bottom. Keep that length up top. Right at the bottom. Work my way back down. There it is. Now it feels a whole lot better. Still a little heavy right in here. And that's why. All that length right there. Go in. Feel it now. Right? It's a little heavier, but does it feel lighter than it did? You can feel it just a little bit heavier still.
Compared to over here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's just a little still.
But it's definitely different than when you just grabbed it. All right. I won't call you back up now. I'll clean it some more. It feels good to me except for right in here. So I'm going to go on the inside of that. I'm going to do a little slicing. Mm-hmm. Now that feels better. That feels a lot better now. All right, cool. Now what I want to check here, because this is my transition, I want to, yeah, just to, can you reach it from there just by moving it? Yeah, there you go. Good. All right, so what I'm looking at is right in here and on the other side. I want to make sure that they seem pretty equal as I'm transitioning. This one still has a little bit more in there. So I'll go in. Now this is creative cutting. I'm going to go in and all I'm going to do is trim some of this, not all of it. All right. One of the things I do when I'm doing one of these mullets, especially if it's a barber focused mullet. When I say barber focused, it does have a fade. It does have sharper lines. I try to use that in the cut. So I want to exaggerate this turn right here behind the ear into right above the ear. And so I'll cut into it a little bit. If his hair was darker, you'd really be able to see it. What's that? Well, I don't like to cut into the hairline, but on this type of cut, I would right in here, because what that's going to do is it forces this, and then you see that and you see more of his ear. See how now that's coming out? Yeah. So although I still have this that covers that, right? Right behind the ear, I did carve into it a little bit so I can get more of this. And the reason why is his hair isn't really, really long yet. If his hair was a lot longer, I may not have had to do that. So I'm doing this so it can grow into it. Does that make sense, Bo? All right, we'll do it on this side. Turn his head. Lift this out the way. And when I say I'm carving into it, it's not really deep. I'm just getting a little bit to get this to accentuate and create that shape where you see that roundness happening. Do you see it? Oh. Voila. So if I lift this up, you can see the roundness happening. All right. Next, what I want to do is I want to start putting some of the shape to this. So I'm going to use first. Is it here? Where's the other one? I had the cream. No, I had my molding cream up here though. Costa Nostra. Costa Nostra molding cream. I mean, if you want to give me some stuff from downstairs, I want the molding cream though. It's not in the back. I don't think so. What's that? Yeah, it should have been right here.
In the back classroom, if you want to see a box, it says level 3. There should be
L3.
Just bring the whole box up.
I'm not using a whole lot anyway. I can work with this pomade, but this is going to be a little bit more stickier. So I'm not using a lot. I'm emulsifying it in my hands. I'm just going to put it on the ends first. It's going to give you more shine. So a wax, a pomade's a pomade, a cream's a cream, a gel's a gel. They're either stronger hold, more shine, lighter hold. It's just how they're marketed. But what the products do, and I like a cream because I'm going to add some heat to this, right? So it's going to act more as a heat protectant, and it's going to allow me to shape the hair in the direction I want to. But you can see already now we have, here he's got his rock star mullet happening. And he doesn't have that heavy, heavy bang that he had in the front. It's still a little bit, I might even want to go a little bit shorter, but I won't know until I put this in the position, because I may even cut some more off the sides. But if you take a look at from the side, do we have that mullet shape that I was going for? That's the biggest thing. As long as now I got my shape, I can go ahead and fine tune the rest of this. I can go back in and follow up on this haircut. All right. I still think I want to go a little bit shorter in the front here. I do. I do. I can afford to too. He's got plenty of hair, so it's not a situation where I can't. I mean, if he wants to wear it up, it'll still be sticking up. I think it's just a little bit too long in the front. Perfect. Thank you. Let me see here. All right, so I'll take the hairspray out. Voila. Let me see what we got here. You can leave everything here. Texturizing formula. Yeah. Super wax, nope. Hold, nope. All right. Texturizing formula. So remember I said cream? This is a cream. This cream is going to allow me to really, really blow dry and reposition this hair in any direction I want. I can also cut the hair once I have it styled with the cream in it. But with the pomade, because it's waxy, I can start to dull my blades and stuff like that. So I want. The creams are, no, it depends. Most of these are water-based products. I don't know how theirs are formulated. Yeah, I'm doing it on the tips first. Once I get it on the tips, I re-emulsify it. I go back on the tips and I go a little bit deeper. I re-emulsify it, and then I use my fingertips and get it in at the base. Okay? Now that I have this, I can put the hair in the direction I want, and you can see the shape that we were going for. Again, short, high, long, drops in the back, and goes into that mullet. Now, he could probably wear it like this. But what I'm going to do now is, that's going to suck. Just plug it into the extension cord right here. Take this one out. Who did that? Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you're going to plug it. Voila. Thank you. So I want this to lay in the direction I want it to go. So I'm blow drying and brushing in the direction I want the hair to go. Look at my nozzle. What's not matching here is my nozzle is pushing air only here, and I want it to push all this hair. Now, can you now see why I wanted that black and the brown to go into the blonde? Because if I didn't, it'd be all dark and we have one big old blonde spot. Switch hands. We'll do the same on the other side. Cool, I got it. Move this down and forward. I'm always blowing the hair and brushing in the same direction. Now, let's do this real quick. It's fine. Why do you think I have this separation happening right here? Can anybody tell me? Say that again? It's not so much part of the illusion. Say that again. What about the shape of the head? That's where it starts to round off. Everything I start is from here. So my transition is happening here. This is where the transition is taking place throughout the entire cut. In this particular case, and then everyone's head is going to begin to shift here. But with this look, we want this to go up. So now that I have my sides, I'll leave it there. The bottom, we want to go forward. Right, to accentuate the length. But now I'm going to work from the top and begin to create volume up top, and you'll see that transition that I was talking about earlier. So right at the apex, that goes forward, this goes backwards. Do you guys see that? Okay? So I'm going to grab this hair, a little wiggle, a little twist. Now I got tension. If I yank his head, it's not going nowhere. Okay? So, but if I just curl, if I just do this, I'm not going to get the hair. Did you see that? If I just put the comb here and do this, I see a lot of students doing that, and they don't get the hair. It's not getting it. If I give it a little wiggle, a tiny little wiggle, now I got his hair. I'll get as much grip as I need that way. Would you have a question?
I was trying to see it in the, I can see it now.
Okay. All right, do you see what I'm doing here? I'm lifting this hair up to go front. I'm gonna do the same thing as I work my way down the middle here. A little shimmy, a little shake. Pull that hair, a little shimmy, a little shake. Little shimmy, a little shake. Go lower. Notice I ain't mess with that hair. I'm just going to the next section. Shimmy, shake. Next section. Shimmy, shake. Next section. Shimmy, shake. Next section. I'm not worried about styling. Now, I'll show you this. I'm putting this in a little angle. So basically, all of this hair is going to be horizontally curled going upward. Do you see that? From here, I'm going to do it in a V shape because this hair is going to come into the back. So I'll move this out the way. I'm going to grab right here at this transition point, little shimmy shake. Everything's going backwards. Notice that my comb, or my brush rather, is going down in a V shape. I'm doing the same thing here. Down in a V shape. Down in a V shape. Just this area, shimmy, curl, curl. This is going forward. Y'all see that? We'll do the same thing on this side. Transition, transition. Now, let me ask you, by what you saw me do so far, did any of that look hard? Not really. I mean, the fading part, maybe some nuances in there, but what I did is not really difficult. The only way you learn is, all I'm doing is following the shape of what his head is already doing. That's number one. But I'm making the hair do what I needed to do so I can create an end look. We're not even done. I'm still in between this look right now. At this part of the head, I'm gonna do it backwards. Shimmy shake. Shimmy shake. Shimmy shake. It's almost like it's being clawed in the middle. You see that? Right in the middle. Doing the same thing. Right in the middle, shimmy shake. Coming up. Lift this up. Here's where I think it needs to be a little bit shorter. I'll go down first. I'm going down so I can get maximum lift. And what I'm doing is I'm placing this nozzle right up against the hair and the brush to help straighten it. Because if you saw right in the end, in the front, see how he has this little curl? I want this little curl to go away. What are you laughing at? Oh, he's stupid. So in order to get that curl out, I got to get that heat to affect the H-bonds, and I'm putting it right against that brush. Maximum heat, maximum shape, right at there. Now that little curl he had in the front is gone.
Now, when you hit it
So right now when I'm not touching it, the cold air is going to help to set it. So the shape is still going forward. See, it's still there. Right now it's cooling. I can hit it with cold air, and I think a lot of times the misconception is that you have to hit it with direct cold air. You can. This doesn't have a button just for hit the cold. So like with my blow dryer, I can be curling, then I can hit it with the cold and hold it in place. But right now while it's sitting, it is cooling off. If I would have moved, notice when I was brushing, I left it alone. If I would have manipulated that, then I'm messing with the curl because it's still hot. I left it alone. Now it's there. Okay? Now it's there. So I still want to trim some of this in the front. I still think some of that in the front's got to go. Thing is he's got this really, really curly hair. So what I'm going to do is I am going to use a texturizing shear. I'm going to go in here away from his forehead about 2 to 3 fingers back, and I'm going to go right in here, and I'm going to basically notch. I'm going in and just getting some hair in a couple different areas. And the purpose for me doing that is because I need all these little hairs. I don't want to remove the length. If I go straight across, it'll be choppy. I don't want it to be choppy. I'm going in and I'm notching in, but I'm going very, very deep so that way that's linear back to where? Back to my apex. Now when I comb through this, now we got all the hair out, but look, the curl is still there. I need these little hairs to hold the long hairs up to maintain my shape. Right there. Well, I mean, to be quite honest with you, it can be scary if you're unsure of the results. You're gonna have to mess up your mannequin. You're gonna have to mess up your cousin. You're gonna have to mess up your girlfriend or your best friend, until you can actually get the result that you're looking for. I'm gonna go ahead and just trim a little bit more of this front. See if I can get this a little lower. Since he's too tall, I'm gonna just go to the front. Hey, all right.
No, because, wait, were you here for when we played Jeopardy? No. So, one of the questions for me, Russ, Shelby, and Ian, and who else was on our team? Yeah, I was here. Well, something about the cervical ligaments it being like the base of the spine, and everyone's like, no. I'm like, it is, because I sprained my cervical spine. And so I don't slouch for that reason. And also, Russ had to hit me with some like Tyson spinal. Broke my back.
So now, you guys, when you're looking at it, do you see that I still have the shape that I was going for? And I think that's the main thing, is making sure that I maintain that. What I don't have, though, is around his ear, some of that excess hair out the way to accentuate the mullet. Now, right in there, I'm going to carve some of that. Do the same thing on this side that I just did over there. I'm just repeating it. Now, if I want to go a little bit shorter, I can, because now I see the shape of the cut. And when I say shorter, I'm talking about on the fade. I have my transition with my color, but now I can go ahead and remove a little bit more weight if I need to. All I'm doing is going back in and fine-tuning this cut. Move that. Same thing on this side. He's got a lot of weight right here. Anybody have any questions so far about what I did or where I'm at? Or what I'm looking at, or what I'm thinking about?
So what we had to do to maintain like that, like the cut, basically.
When you say maintain the cut, what are you talking about?
You know how like for the most part, for a waiver, they'll try to put on like a do-rag to keep it even.
Okay. So what would he do to maintain this look? The cool thing about this is because it has a lot of texture, he could do whatever he wants. He wants to wear it to the side, he can wear it to the side. If he wants to flatten this out a little bit, he can flatten it out. If he wants to wear his hair bone straight, he could either put gel in it and lay it back and go to sleep with a do-rag on. And then he'll wake up, it's called a wet set. It's actually a wet mold. He'll be molding his hair to be bone straight. He can also wear it down if he wants it down, if he wants it to just be flat. And because he has so much texture, if he wore it flat, he'll have all these pieces in the front, and then he can just lift this up right here. So this could be flat, he can have lift right here, there's a lot that he can do with this look. But the key is that this is wide. Do you see that in the back? It's got to be wide because that's the look of the cut. He looked at himself. That's the look of the cut. Oh, you can look at yourself right there. So I have it squared. Maintaining this is easy. He could throw a hat on. He's going to have his mullet. He's going to have a fade sticking out. If he takes his hat off and just messes his hair up, this look is a messy look.
Okay. No, that's all I was asking.
This look.
It looks like a strong cut. To me, it's like a real, like, I call them confident cuts. Like, you can tell that it's styled and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
So, for the most part, when most people get haircuts, the next day it kind of be like, it ain't as fresh as yesterday.
Now what I do have on it right now is I put the molding cream. I didn't even finish it. So because now the molding cream is there, if I really want to piece this out, what I can do is grab these pieces and straighten them out.
Right.
And now I have these,
Like more detailed.
yeah, more detailed. I can make this one come down and stick out. Right? I can begin to, wherever I want. Wherever I want. If I want to flatten this out, I'm putting pomade. It'll make it a little heavier. Right? It makes it a little bit heavier. I begin to pull this down if I want to. And it doesn't have to be up. But I still have the shape I was going for. This is coming back, this is going up, this is going forward, and this is coming out. And there's his mullet. If you don't want as much like curl in it, you look slightly wet it, you can add more heat, you can brush through it.
Now, what if I want like the back to be like extra curly?
If you want the back to be extra curly, then you just got to wet it and look, I got it right now though. It's more like choppy. But your hair is cut. Like you'll find now that when you're trying to do your hair, ask Shelby, they'll tell you that it'll be much different manipulating your hair now than what you have been. Because it has a lot of texture, it has a lot of movement. You'll be like, oh, it's doing what I wanted to do. There's not going to be a lot of areas that's going to be fighting against you. Would you agree? Yeah. Because I add texture, there's the exterior haircut where you're cutting the shape, and then there's the interior cut. I did exterior cut and I did a lot of interior cutting. And because of that, if he wants to go to the side, it'll go to the side. If he wants this to go flat, well, now I got those curls on the end, but he can wear his hair flat if he wants to. It doesn't matter. It look, go straight back up, and he's back up again. You know? What'd you say? Yeah, I mean, it's just, the hair should do what you want it to do at the end of the day. And if your guest knows how to do their hair, they're gonna make you look good. If they don't know how to do their hair, they're not gonna make you look good. Because you could do this amazing cut, and if they can't make this pop when you go home, then you look bad. This is easy though, because what stands out is he's got this part, he's got a fade. As long as he spikes his hair and lifts it forward and back, he'll be fine. And then we got his look. We good to go. And once he does his mustache like he do, he'd be in the game.
Yes, oh, that mustachio.
Where'd it go? Anybody else have any questions? Nope. Handlebar mustache. Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate it. We can stop the record button if we can. Let me clean some of these hairs underneath. Also with the mullet, right? You're not really doing a hard line. Lift that hair, get it out the way, and just get the hair underneath. I didn't hear your question. Your question was? Well, it's two purposes. His question was when I went in with the thinning shear and did those deep cuts on the inside, I went about a finger to a finger and a half above the scalp. So the shorter hairs are going to help to hold these hairs up, even without product. It does help to move it the way it wants. It has everything to do with movement. You won't be able to see them. You're cutting them. They're so closely connected you won't see them. But I specifically, because I was feeling the hair, I know where I wanted to cut them. I needed to cut one from an angle going to the apex, one in the middle, and then one from an angle going to the apex for this particular look. Because I want to be able to push his hair that way if I want to go that way. I want to be able to push his hair this way if I want to go this way.